Anxiety is probably one of the top issues that people are personally struggling with these days. The COVID crisis, the weird and crazy world of national and international politics, and the recent financial scares are all factors in this. They're causing stress beyond what most of us have ever experienced in such a short period of time. Beyond those things, our personal health, the struggle of living, working, and maintaining relationships, and having a correct and balanced view of ourselves pose constant challenges these days. Hi, this is Dr. Michael Bogart, and I've been making a series of videos on anxiety. I thought that I had finished the series when I made the video on hope. But after editing what I thought was that final video, I awoke the very next morning knowing I needed to make at least one more video. So I will relate that awakening experience, which is what it was, a personal experience. So there's no medical or psychological advice being given here. If it helps, I'm just glad. And if you've watched any of my previous videos, I won't bore you with a repeat of my horrifying trauma of early July 2020. If you've not seen any of those other videos, you can watch them to get an idea of what sparked my more than 2 years of anxiety, depression, and feelings of hopelessness. Now, I've been having some physical problems too, and I think part of it is because I cheated and ate some gluten, which after not having gluten for a long time may have been a factor. I certainly had my gluten rash come back and some other things. So it may be partly that. But this is what I experienced during the night, last night as a matter of fact. And I think it may be some sort of breakthrough. I kept waking up with feelings of frustration that were preventing me from slipping into a restful sleep state. I don't know whether to call it dreaming or just some kind of visual perception. I guess it doesn't really matter. But I did visualize something. And what I saw that caused me to awaken over and over again was a pile or mound of something covered by a sheet. In my visualization, I would walk over to the sheet and lift the edge. And under the sheet, I could see something like a pile of grayish jello, maybe as high as my knees. It was almost like a great big quivering jellyfish, and it grossed me out. So I would drop the sheet back in place, and then I would drift off again into a fitful sleep. And this happened several times, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, something like that. The last time it happened, I woke up enough to look at my bedside clock. It was just after 6 a.m., nearly time for me to get up. My wife was already up, but instead of getting out of bed, I just lay there and I knew that this was something important, something I needed to process. Now I find that often I am most perceptive and able to make sense out of things as I awaken from a night's sleep. So this was a prime time to deal with this. And here's what sort of fell into place in my mind. I think that what I was visualizing represented all of the frustrations of my life, things that I wanted to do, goals I wanted to accomplish, circumstances I wanted to change, but none of which I could make happen. At the heart of this frustration was the feeling of inadequacy, of powerlessness, of impotence. I felt I just couldn't ever get to where I needed to go. I couldn't overcome circumstances. I couldn't get past people that prevented me from getting where I wanted to be. Now let me explain that a little bit. I don't believe that I should always get to do whatever I want. Life just isn't like that. And some of what I've wanted in the past turned out to be wrong or selfish or would needlessly have hurt someone. So I don't want that. But sometimes what I've wanted was good in itself, but it simply wasn't within God's plan for me. And I get that. I'm not God. I don't know everything. But what that pile covered by the sheet represented in my mind were things that would have kept me from doing things and being what would have been acceptable within God's plan for my life. I'm talking about things that were compatible with why I was born and what God created me to do. Thinking back, there were people over the course of my life who have told me in one way or another that I was inadequate, that I didn't see things properly, or that I didn't know what I was doing. Instead, they urged me to see the world through their lenses and accomplish what made sense to them. In other words, I should trust their perceptions and views rather than my own. Now, don't misunderstand. I've usually ended up doing what I knew to be true for me. But there were always those nagging doubts that I could be wrong. Now maybe you can relate to this. I navigate life and accomplish goals by working with people. In my nearly 50 years of Christian ministry, I have been pretty successful by operating in just that way. I've led churches in crisis, I've managed problem people, I've worked with narcissists. These are not easy things to do. I don't believe that I always know best, and I'm usually open to ideas from others that could be better ways of seeing and doing things. And I've accomplished a lot with that outlook. I detest people who believe that they're always right and insist that other people do things their way. And yet somehow, I have never been completely free of those debilitating voices. Are you sure you know what you're doing? Are you sure that's the right thing? What makes you think you get to do that, accomplish that, be that? You're naive. You're an idealist. You're out of touch with the real world. You're selfish. People like you can never go that far. Just settle for a life that doesn't work out to be very much. These are the whispering voices in the back of my mind. And sometimes I even see faces whispering these types of things. Faces of people that I have known. So what to do about that pile of frustration and self-doubt covered by that sheet that was my acceptance at some level of its presence in my deepest being? Well, as I lay there, I tried to go back into that dreamlike state and see all of that again. Instead of lowering the sheet, though, and walking away and avoiding the task of dealing with it all, I walk up to the pile, I lift the sheet, and I really look at it. Okay, it's there. It doesn't belong there. How should I get rid of it? I grab a nearby shovel. I throw back the sheet and start chopping, slicing the jellyfish apart into big chunks. Then I scoop the pieces into a box and walk to the edge of a cliff. Looking down, it's the same scene as in the culmination of the Lord of the Rings movie when Frodo and Gollum are struggling over the evil ring of power. Remember that in their struggle, the ring ends up falling into the river of molten lava and disintegrating. So, I empty the chopped up pieces over the cliff and into the lava. Then I go back to the remnants of the pile and scoop up the remaining bits and pieces as well as the sheet and go back to the cliff. Then I throw everything into the lava and watch it catch fire and burn into nothingness. I know, it's pretty graphic. But the pile, the blob, had to go. I couldn't cover it up again. I couldn't somehow shove it back into the darkness. It had to be decisively destroyed. I have no idea whether this is a one-time deal or whether I may have to do this again a number of times. All I know is I've got to do it until it's no longer a problem. We'll just have to see. But I think this deep frustration and self-doubt was a big part, maybe even the root of my angst over the past couple of years. Yes, physical, dietary, and spiritual factors played a role. Yes, stress played a part. But this pile of frustration and self-doubt may have been at the very heart of the trauma. Time will tell. I hope that my story has been a help to you. At least you know that someone else is a fellow traveler on that difficult journey. Maybe you have something yourself that's deep down that you have to uncover and deal with. Well, if so, God bless you as we walk together, fellow pilgrim. This is Dr. Michael Bogart with Aspect Ministries.